Good.
I suppose it was move-in weekend for Waldorf.
Yeah.
So there was quite a few parents probably staying there.
I did. I just let my kid get out.
Now the world knows.
She was proud of now.
You sure she didn't run away from home?
Yeah. Actually, I got two of them now. Well, must be about time. It is officially 9 o'clock. Pledge allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay,
Make a motion to approve the minutes on the agenda.
I'll second it.
motion Stenzer and a second from Derby to approve the minutes of the agenda. All in favor say aye. Aye. 9 a.m. discussion regarding refunding bonds.
Well, good morning.
Good morning.
Heidi Cool with Northland. I think I heard Jeff jump on as well.
Yes, I'm online. Yep.
Well, thanks for having us today. Last year I spoke with Carla talking about the possibility of refunding, and Carla had mentioned, she said that rates were going to go down, and, they have. So today I wanted to talk about the option to refund your 2012 A bonds that are currently outstanding. Those originally funded some of your urban renewal roads and bridges. So these bonds are currently paid with TIF. They have 8 years outstanding left on it. There's 3 things that I want to talk about today. Talking about the option of refunding this issue as a rated issue or a non-rated issue. We'll talk about the pros and cons of those. We'll talk about the TIF balance that you have outstanding, and if you can use cash to that, or what other projects you have out there that you can use those dollars for. And then I'll talk about the future debt that you have that can be refunded here in the near future, coming up here in 2021. And then the last thing we'll talk about is any next steps about that. So it looks like, I see on the live on the YouTube here, it looks like you've got the debt book in front of you. Do you have the 2 refunding scenarios that have a rated and a non-rated refunding in front of you? What we're Carla,
We lost you there for a while.
Yeah, do you have the scenario that has the rated and the non-rated scenario in front of you?
I gave that to the board last week. Yep, Terry's got it.
Last week. Okay. Well, I can kind of summarize it. So what it does is it takes those 8 years outstanding and looks at the savings if you get a rating and if you don't. I know the county has been through the rating process before. It has some extra steps associated with it. You currently have an A+ rating. So what it does is you have some extra steps where you go and you have a call with S&P. Typically you get together a few people, officials from the county, typically someone from the board, auditor, treasurers, and have a call with S&P to get those A+ rates. Now, if you're looking at rates as of today, to refund those bonds, taking the costs associated with it, just by going through this process, you can save about $181,000, which has a true interest cost savings of 0.63%, which is your interest rate So very, very low, very low rates. So that's what we're talking today. The other option that you can do is go ahead and not do the rating, not go through that extra meetings and time, and just go out to the bond market with non-rated rates. With rates as of today, you'd be looking at savings of just over $165,000 with a true interest cost of 0.83%. So when you're looking at averaging that, that's over $20,000 a year just by going through this process of the refunding.
Is that all cost included?
Yes, that's including all the costs, bound console fees, and with the rating, that includes the fee of the rating too. So.
And this is Jeff. I'll jump in too. Usually, like if we're doing new money for sure, like we're doing new projects and we're moving forward, I'd always recommend a rating. On refinancing, it's a little different because let's say we go through the rating process and it takes about a month, and let's say something unforeseen in the market comes due and rates go back up, and we don't do the refunding, you still have to pay the bond rating. And it makes a lot of sense to get rating, but there's some risk of doing, we're looking at about $15,000 of extra savings, 15 to 16. But the risk is that we're assuming rates will stay exactly where they are and don't get out of control, and then we're going to move forward. So you got to look at that. If we do go through with the rating, whether we do it or not, you're going to have to pay for it. And so I just want to bring that up as when you make a decision whether we go rated or non-rated.
Does the Dow strength have any bearing on that?
You mean on the rating or whether the rates will stay?
On the general, I guess, consensus towards it. Like, I mean, does that affect how people look at it?
No, it doesn't. I mean, the dollar.
Say at the interest rate.
The interest rates in the future, really, the economy, sure. The dollar, how the dollar's looked at across the world does play into effect of where, interest rates are going to be in the future. Short term, I look, none of us know for sure, but short term, I believe rates are going to stay, somewhat steady. But, as we look at Congress, just passed $1 trillion deal last spring, and now they're looking at another $1 trillion or more. When you start borrowing that kind of money and you spread it out, it's got to affect the value of the dollar, you're right, and what money is going to be worth in interest rate. So the future, if we were looking at holding this out till next spring, I'd say we got a lot of risk for the next couple months until the election. I don't see a lot of movement.
Right, and looking at where we're at today, when you see rates sub 1%, in historically, seeing an 8-year bond less than 1%, just makes a lot of sense when you know what you know now. Looking in the future, could they go a little bit lower? Possibly, but there's a lot more room for rates to go up than to go down, where we're at this point. So, that's, Jeff hit the nail on the head is, yes, if you go through that rating process, there's extra time, and then there's extra market risk for rates to go up, and then you will have to pay for that fee. Looking at where rated or non-rated rates, it's a phenomenal rate, and the county could realize some real significant savings on this outstanding bonds.
Well, I guess it's my opinion to go with the unrated.
I was the chair the last time we got a rating done. It wasn't fun. we sat in here on that conference call. There's a lot of work that you guys had to do ahead of time for it. To me, it's not worth that little bit of savings to go through that.
I agree. Plus the downside, the upside.
Yeah.
Well, and Jeff, yesterday you were talking that the bond ratings have been a little bit tougher than what they had been in the past.
Yeah,
I'd agree with that.
yeah. Ever since the COVID, we're seeing both S&P and Moody's looking much more stringent. They're really concerned about valuation growth, concerned about ending fund balances, and so what has been a little more lenient probably the previous 2 years. They're starting to, yeah, we have a few counties that are starting to be downgraded. And so we are taking, so right now, if you got an A plus, you can still say you got an A plus. If we go out there and get rated, it moves back to an A. Then, that's your last rating. We can always talk about what our last rating was. So yeah, you're correct, Carla. I did, that is another risk factor of just, we're in the COVID environment and things are being looked at more stringently than they were previously.
And also from a work perspective, they're asking a lot about the impact of COVID and what's happening today, rather than just looking at the last year's audits and budgets. But they're asking for some more information. They're data collecting right now, which is just a little bit extra more time and thought when, some of these questions, we're just going from a day-to-day trying to figure them out. But we are seeing with the rating companies that they have more questions and they're becoming more stringent just due to this COVID change. And, I know that, didn't happen up north, but things like the derecho and things like that, they'll as these things happen, they ask more questions, and it does take extra time.
Yeah.
We don't want to waste time and just have to go through the lower one.
Yeah.
The non-rated.
But we want to go through the refunding process to get
Oh,
financed.
absolutely.
Yeah, that's my opinion
I think
too.
we'd be pushing that. Well, let's just go through the non-rated scenario.
Okay.
Well, the next step, Carla and I stopped in to see Carla yesterday, and I was looking at your ending fund balances of TIF, and we've been talking about this for the past year. You've got capital projects that we amended and trying to get your courthouse and some other things done with cash. But even with that in mind, Carl and I seen, somewhere between $750,000 and $1 million, you could probably put to a, payment on this to have more savings. But as we talked yesterday, Carl and I, looking at, and Heidi will point out, we've got more refunding bonds coming due in 21, 22, and 23 that's getting 2 or 3% interest. So if we paid $1 million down on cash today, where we're borrowing at only 0.8% interest, where if we just do the full refunding and keep that cash available, where you're going to have some 2% plus bonds coming due next June, that it might be wise to keep your cash and, do more of your capital projects on the courthouse. I know you got a conservation project that we could do internal loan on to pay for cash of that, and then look at where all your cash is and really pay ahead on the bonds next year and the following year coming due. So,
On the conservation, we're all square on that one. We're settled for our financial obligation to that, so.
No, we're not.
okay.
Well,
We committed to it,
right,
but where's the money coming from?
well,
Oh, that's what I was wondering. How are we wording that? Is it going to be allowable through TIF?
Well, we'll have to redo the, we'll have to add it to the
wording.
urban renewal area in order to do that, but we didn't budget for it outside of the TIF, so we're gonna have to,
So there's still work to be done there to get that.
yes.
Well, that's easily remedied in the
Yeah.
next budget process, so. Yeah. Go ahead.
Sure. I see that everybody has this Winnebago County, Iowa debt book in front of you. If you go to page 5, this shows your 2016 B bonds outstanding that originally funded the Public Safety Center. So it has the jail and the emergency and communications equipment. That's the bond that's going to be callable coming up here June 1 of 2021. If you look at those interest rates out in 2035, you see those 3%. That's where you'd look to pay off some of that debt early. And you can do that up to 90 days prior to that 6/1 date. So you'd be paying off those higher 3% rates to use that cash most effectively and to save your interest costs. Paying off some of that early to lower your interest rate and costs going forward, then take off some of that debt service levy for those years. And then if some of that earlier stuff makes sense to refund at that time, we'll be looking at that as well.
I guess I need to understand the process of doing that, where we're coming up with the money to do that. Are we using the TIF funds to do that?
Yeah, so we have extra fund balance in the TIF fund right now. And so we have a choice. We can either pay down some of this so we refund less, or we can refund the whole thing, keep that cash, and then when this is callable in 21, we put that cash on that higher interest rate loan and pay it down faster. Am I getting it right, Jeff and Heidi?
Yes, that would be, that is true, what we're looking at. And then also, what is the 15, the other bonds that are callable in 22 and 23 also. And then finishing up, I guess keeping in mind if there's any other finishing jobs that you want to do on the courthouse or any other road TIF project, I guess it leaves your options open of getting some of those projects done at 0.8% interest, and keeping your cash so that you could do those, or you just go ahead and put anywhere from $700 to $1 million down on this loan, and we could have additional savings. But I think it's wise at this time, as low as interest rate is to leave that door open for other possible things that you may need to do in the next year or two, or if you don't need to do them, like Carla says, then we can go ahead and pay it on the debts that are coming due next year and the year after. So if we were if let's say we had 4% interest rates, we were refunding for 2%, I would probably recommend that you just put the cash toward it, because you're going to still have 2% money on the new refinancing. But now we're subpar 1% loans. It's a very cheap way to keep your options open, and then make that decision next summer whether you want to pay down the debt rather than now.
Was this for the land purchase, this bond?
It was for the whole project.
The Public Safety Center one?
The
one on
4.2, no, that would be the land, yeah. I'm sure I know you know this, but, wouldn't we run into a little legal problem since that was a referendum?
in using the TIF dollars to pay that off.
Right.
Yeah, we would
Yeah,
really
that's it. We would
look at the other two bond issues. Heidi, you got those in front of you? I don't.
Yeah, those other two. Yes, we're looking at the page 6 is the 16A, which has 2%, and then page 7, the 2015A. We'd want to pay those off, the 3%, the 3% on those. Yes, you're right. I spoke of the jail ones, but we would look to do the ones that are paid with TIF, which are the 16A and the 15A.
But that was something that was voted on, so wouldn't that exceed the bond, or the referendum limit? If we use that, I mean, we're using other proceeds to pay for the jail. Now, we did that, we bought the land out of the general fund.
You're doing that. You'll look at that on your, what page is that, Heidi? On your total debt, you'll see that they got a debt service levy on the total debt page.
Yes, on the total debt page. If you look at page 4, at the top it says General Obligation Debt Summary. That takes into account all your outstanding debt. On the left side, it shows your principal and interest payments. And then in the middle column, that's all of the debt paid by TIF. And then to the right, that's the jail that's paid with debt service levy.
And Mike, we would not change that debt service levy on this. We would still keep that, what is that, around 300-some thousand?
Yes.
So that, you're right, Mike. We would not, that voted one is going to stay the same. We're just looking at all the urban renewal debt that we would save in the future to pay down on.
That answers the question. Thank you.
Yep.
I say go for it.
So,
Yep.
So if the county would like to proceed, we can talk a little bit about what that process looks like and those dates look like to refund this outstanding debt. What it does take is it takes a set of hearings, the approval of official statement, which Northland puts that together. We may ask Carla a couple questions of a few things that we can't find online. Then we go out to the bond market. And then your interest rate will be fluctuating until we get out to that date. So you have to get through those hearings and the official statement until you get to that date. You have one other meeting, which is the issuance resolution, which legalizes it. And then you close on the bonds, where you pay off your 2012A, and then you have the new set of bonds outstanding.
Well, I think it's our consensus here to move forward, so.
well, then we'll get a hold of Dorsey and get agenda items to set a hearing and to hold a hearing date. So we'll work with Carla and get those dates.
Sounds good.
And this is all subject to the day of, the hearings, and then, we'll just get the process started, and we'll keep you updated on the rates. And if you want to continue when we get the hearings done, then we'll be ready to roll.
Do we need to sign the engagement letter today, or can I put that in the agenda for next week, Jeff?
If you can do it either or, I mean, if it's on the agenda item for a discussion today on refunding and the board wants to approve it, technically we needed to go ahead and contact Dorsey to do stuff. So it's all as an agenda item, you could go ahead and approve it today. Or if you're more comfortable waiting, we'll go either way.
Well, we actually can't approve it today, but I can pretty much tell
Just
you.
Yep, approve it at your next meeting then.
Okay.
Okay, so I'll take those
Any
back.
other questions or anything on the refunding or anything on our process?
No,
I don't,
sounds like good news.
Okay. You anything else, Heidi?
No, not right now. Thank you for your time this morning.
You bet.
thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you. Okay. Goodbye. Jeff Heil.
Has left.
Okay, number 3, discussion and possible action regarding COVID-19 policies.
I was asked a couple weeks ago by the auditor's office in Hancock County to bring the comprehensive leave policy up to CDC. What you have there is that's the Hancock County language. The only difference between the Winnebago County language and the Hancock County language is literally the words Winnebago or Hancock. The bottom section of it, you can see what the old one says. What we had amended it to in Hancock County is what's provided from amend to, those 4 bullets underneath there. Also, just for clarity's sake, under the old, the last line that says employees experiencing any of the above should report it immediately. That would stay in the current policy. But what this does is it brings it up to current CDC recommendations. So for employees that basically, if they have any 2 of the following minor unexplained symptoms, and we added unexplained down there because, right now, I mean, muscle and body aches, that's every day. And then if you have allergies, so anyway, something that's unexplained. The new high-risk symptoms are a new cough, shortness of breath, or difficulty breathing, and a new loss of taste or smell. And then it goes in to talk about if you've been diagnosed, when you can return to work, and then if you are a legitimate contact, that's within 6 feet for 15 continuous minutes. That's not cumulative, it's continuous. So, and then when you can come back to work.
So just to clarify, the bullet points would be replaced with the ones on the next page.
Correct.
And the last statement of the employees experiencing would stay in the policy.
That is correct, yes.
Well, I would say with the proper edits of the name and the recommendation, I'm okay with that change.
Yeah.
I'll make that a motion.
I'll second that. A motion from Derby and a second from Stensrud to update
Update the policies to
Update the
reflect the
policies.
CDC guidelines.
the CDC guidelines. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
So it sounds like most of our cases in the increase were from the nursing homes and some from the college then.
Correct.
So they're all in a 3-block area.
They're very close, yes. Waldorf University is testing every student as they come to campus.
That's good.
Yeah, it is good. But, like as the athletes came back, there were some positive cases. The young men and women, most college-age kids, were not necessarily adhering to the social distancing and masking and things, so they became legitimate contacts of those positives. They are all asymptomatic as far as the university folks go. They have moved them out of their dormitories into another dorm. So that's where they're isolating.
So is that having had it or they have it now?
They would have it now. Yep. Yeah. And then the contacts, very small percentage of Waldorf's kids that are in isolation were actually positive. They were contacts at the time.
So half of our cases in our county right now are active.
Yes, and the vast majority of those are either attributable to Waldorf University and or Good Samaritan. Good Samaritan, I think,
40 some.
there are about 40 or 46, I think, total cases
Between staff and,
between staff and residents.
Any
So
serious ramifications?
yeah.
there's been some deaths at the care center, yes. So again, we're hoping that it,
Now explain to me on that, when you say COVID deaths, I'm assuming there was underlying factors.
well, age is the biggest one for those folks, unfortunately.
I just read an article that there was a guy in Chicago that died of an overdose. I mean, that's what's on his death, well, no, COVID's on his death certificate.
Right.
I mean, that's not right.
The CDC's guidance basically says that it's up to the medical provider that does the pronouncement of death. If it can be reasonably assumed that COVID was a major contributing factor to their death, then they can list it as COVID. There's a lot of situations out there. I know there's some instances where folks have passed away due to COVID, and the family has not been too happy because there were other factors with their health.
Like the one in Florida, the 26-year-old tested positive for COVID and then got killed in a motorcycle accident. He's on the list as a COVID death.
I hadn't heard that one. So, but yeah, unfortunately, Good Sam needs some good thoughts right now. That's pretty tough.
That's all.
So we're-
Anybody with a diminished lung capacity of any kind, this is really detrimental.
It's pretty tough.
It sounds like, yeah, the new funding for testing is gonna help the situation in the nursing homes, right?
Yeah, the testing in our area hasn't necessarily been an issue. I haven't heard of any, no, we can't do this. So, we've been able to get the testing done as needed, where needed.
So when there's one identified case in a nursing home, everybody gets tested, don't they, or?
Yep, and the requirements from Iowa Department of Public Health is that for all care centers is that they screen their employees.
I was just gonna ask that. How
They
often?
that's a daily thing.
I would assume so, yeah.
It is, and again, it's unfortunate that it got into the care center here locally. Again, nobody wanted it, less than those folks. So they're doing everything they could possibly do. They're fighting as hard as they can.
So then the staff must have been asymptomatic and then brought it in? Is that the,
I don't know.
You can't trace that much.
Yeah, I mean, there was a large number of staff that were positive. So, by the time you realize that it's there, because they do surveillance testing on staff throughout the care centers. It's not just let's wait till something happens. They've been very proactive about it.
Surveillance testing.
Surveillance testing is just, there's not necessarily a reason to do it, that somebody's not sick or anything, so they'll come in, they'll test all their staff and or residents just because. I mean, I've been surveillance tested twice, so is the sheriff. Sorry, I divulged your medical information, sir. But, so yeah, just because, one was for a potential contact, the other one was just because we're in public safety, so.
The surveillance testing, guys, it was part of the phasing so that they could open up and have visitors, and that's how they caught the first few.
Thank you, Julie.
Well, Julie, did you have any more for us?
No, Andy pretty much kind of covered it for me.
Do we have statistics for like a nursing home where in previous years where they come down, the facility has come down with the regular flu and how that's affected the?
I'm sure it's out there through Iowa Department of Public Health, or maybe even our local public health. They do a lot of surveillance and monitoring during flu season. I'm sure it's probably there, but I don't know specifically where we would find it right now.
It's, if I remember what I read right, it's real similar with regular flu as far as death rate. The death rate.
The care centers are very good about, It's not uncommon for them during flu season to limit their visitors and
They
screen.
shut down the one in Buffalo all the time during flu season. It's,
Right,
you don't want anything in there.
that's correct.
That's why you can't understand why anybody would have ever sent a bunch of them into nursing homes for patients.
In other states, you mean?
Well, yeah, no, it's, you just can't believe that decision was made.
Just gotta have that other job.
Yeah, I just can't help myself. But, you don't even send somebody with a cold in there. You can avoid it. Anything else for COVID? Okay, we'll move on to
Thanks, Andy.
You're welcome.
discussion regarding wind turbines.
I guess I don't have much at this time.
All right.
Matt, are you on the phone?
Matt? Did he call you?
We talked and he said he was gonna be on the phone today.
Matt DeVay, you on the phone? Evidently not.
Well,
Did you text him then?
I just texted
Okay,
him,
let's
yeah.
move on to another
Move
subject,
on
and
to-
if he gets
Oh,
back.
he's calling right now.
Okay.
Matt has joined.
Morning.
Morning, Matt.
Morning, guys. I didn't want to interrupt, and you guys were talking about bonds when I was calling in, so
Yeah.
that was interesting stuff.
Oh, it got better. We were talking COVID after that.
Yes, you were.
Now comes the
anything
real
on wind
stuff.
turbines? Yeah. I've been getting a lot of phone calls about wind turbine stuff, the proposed stuff up in Lake Mills area, the northeast part of Winnebago County. But I got one inquiry from the company that was looking at putting them up there about 3 or 4 weeks ago. Just asked about the process, the special exception process, and if there was an example of a permit that was approved, and I forwarded that information, but I haven't heard anything other than that from that end. But several phone calls, probably maybe one every 2 days from concerned citizens, just asking about the process. So,
Can you tell me the last permit we had, and if the next permit includes turbines that are bigger, would that change the setback?
that's what's kind of nice about not having an ordinance written in stone is this is a special exception permit, so we get to start all over again to write the permit. So it's completely up to the zoning board and ultimately you guys to approve what we come up with for setbacks or height restrictions or anything. The only thing that the ordinance does say that in Winnebago County, wind farms are allowed to be on, in Winnebago County, but they have to go through the special exception process, which is, a couple public hearings and approval from the board. So, does that make sense? I know it's kind of vague, but it is what it is. I mean, literally, my zoning board could come up to, have me write the permit to say, the height restrictions are going to be limited to, 500 feet or 300 feet, and the setbacks are going to be 2,000 feet. It can be, whatever they feel is
appropriate based on what they know, public input, and research. So,
Well, I'm not a fan of precedent anyway, but from the legal side of it, does precedent come in? I mean, once you set a special use permit like we did, does that set a precedent for other, I mean, if they were typical, and basically the same in size and structure, would we get in a bind if we made the special use permit more restrictive?
you know, that's probably a legal question we might ask the, you know, the county attorney, but,
That's why we went with a
You know, our
special use
ordinance-
permit, so we could change it anytime we wanted.
right, yeah, that's kind of what we discussed before, like some of the adjacent counties, you know, they've got an ordinance. If they meet that criteria that's in black and white, then they have to issue that permit. You know, we come up with the new black and white every time somebody submits an application, so.
Okay.
That's all I wanted to know.
Yep. Also, I just wanted to share to you as well. I was asked to join an online meeting last week or the week before. There was a zoning official from, I think, Michigan. I can't remember the fellow's name, but Matt Helgeson had lined it up, and I think I had 2 or 3 of my zoning board members on there and just listened to his kind of his spiel about wind turbines and the sizes and all that other good stuff. So I've got access to all that stuff, and we can review that sometime as well if you're interested. Just good stuff to know. So
It was sent to us as a link also, so we can look at it anytime.
oh, okay, good deal.
I haven't looked at it yet, but was there anything glaring in there from your perspective?
No, I mean, no. I mean, just other than the size of the turbines getting larger, that's about all I gathered from it. So
Has this company indicated what size turbines they'd be using?
I have no clue. Nope, nothing in an email or anything.
I would assume that most of them they're putting up now, if they're gonna go through that kind of an effort, they're probably gonna be the relatively big ones. I don't know if it would, because you're getting more out of the area you're leasing that way.
That seems to be the way things are going. They're going bigger, not smaller.
Yeah. Like the setbacks we had for the original ones, and then they repurposed them and made them all bigger, so we really didn't have any choice in the setback on those, so. Okay, anything else for wind turbines? All right, thanks, Matt.
Not on my end. Yep, you bet, guys. Take care.
Okay,
Matt has left.
Scott Minders, engineer, will discuss secondary road matters. Are you on the phone, Scott?
Good morning.
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 I'm on. And
You're cutting out.
hang on.
You walk up out of the trench?
Yeah, right. That's what I'm doing. Can you hear me better now?
Yes.
Okay. Well, last 2 weeks have been pretty busy, so I'm sorry I couldn't be there today. The Rognus Brothers is working on the Barron 78 and 80 bridges, which are on 70th Avenue, northwest of Thompson. They got the bridge down by Woden open to traffic last Friday, and that was seeded, so that one is substantially complete. The MAPI is working on cold-in-place recycling. They had a breakdown last week, so they're still working on 816. They went west from Scarville, the 8 miles, and turned around. Now they're on their way back. And I would think if things go well, they'd have a day or two left there before they move on to the next project. And I haven't heard which location they're going to go to next. It'll either be R50 north of Highway 9 or 838 east from Leland there. Our crew is working north of Lake Mills, about a mile and a quarter on a pipe crossing under R74. And they set that pipe late last week, and hopefully by the end of this week, it's kind of all put back together, and we'll have to see if we can get it patched before we open it up. And then it'll be complete. That's kind of the construction update. You guys got any questions on that?
No.
All right. Other than that, our crew is kind of wrapping up with the rock haul, and otherwise, that's about it.
I've had some calls about the Rice Lake Road, wanting to know why the speed limit was to 15, set to 15 miles per hour.
Okay, they're talking the speed limit as you get past the clubhouse turn off there?
It just came up yesterday afternoon, so I haven't been out there. I was gonna stop on the way home.
Okay.
They said it was 15 miles an hour from the time you get off of, the blacktop there.
Okay, I'm not quite sure. I do know that it's 15 once you get in the neighborhood, you know,
Yep,
past the clubhouse, but I'd have to check to see about the road in there.
I'll check and I'll call you. Okay,
Okay,
all right, that answers that. Yep,
okay, let me know what you find out.
yep. That's all I
Okay,
got.
yeah, I don't have anything.
What about your drainage issue, within the right-of-way that you had sent us?
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Oh, right, I'm sorry, I forgot that, yeah. So, is Chris there today?
Hold on just a second.
Chris was out yesterday afternoon, and I stopped up to talk to her, so I didn't get to visit with her about this since yesterday, but I did copy her on the email of that invoice.
And your position is that the drainage district paid to put it there, that should pay to maintenance it, is that it?
I think that's what it boils down to. Like, there's always exceptions and discrepancies that you gotta kind of sort out each instance, but I think that's the general rule of thumb to follow.
The road ditch.
Oh, well, and Scott, the reason I did it the way I did was, for one, you had paid it before, and in looking at the picture, it's on the road ditch side. If it had been on the ditch, other ditch side, it would have been the drainage district. But since it was along the road
Sure.
ditch, was my second thing. It's like, well, how could the drainage district have caused that when it's on the road side? So that's where I was coming
Sure.
from.
Well,
Yeah.
I suppose the drainage district's water running through it caused it to do it there, but.
Or how about the turbines people? You know what I mean? That's where I came down to, Scott. If it would
Sure.
have been on the opposite side of the ditch, definitely that would be the drainage responsibility.
Yeah.
And I think we had done
I
that one time
can-
before. But I'll
Yeah,
let the
so
supervisors.
we had
do
a
that.
we had a slough in near there a while back, and Gary Garst had called me and said Helgeson's is nearby. They can fix it for $500. And so rather than kind of horse around, try to get approval from anybody else, I just said, okay, let's get it done. And so our office paid for it. It was kind of like out of convenience and customer service, I agreed to do it. I don't know if it was the right thing to do or not, but
Well, and then,
That's how that transpired.
and I'm guessing that Helgeson's didn't know why you said to pay the bill, so then they just assumed you were paying it because it was your bill.
Sure.
Yeah,
It could easily be, yep.
yeah.
And the $500, but then you guys couldn't hardly move there for that in a sense, if you were to figure your time.
Right.
Yeah, I thought it was, maybe too good of an opportunity to pass
that's
up.
fine.
You hate to have a contractor close by.
Right, and even if you would have called me, I would have said, sure, have him do it.
Yeah.
So the way
Yeah,
they.
so that's maybe what I should have done.
Yeah.
So,
So I think it's up to the board to decide how they want to handle these in the future. If it's along the road ditch at all, is it the district or is it secondary roads? If it's just along the roadside, is it secondary roads? If it's on the ditch side, it's definitely district. You guys need to
Well,
make that determination.
we used to do it, that was up to the person whose district it was, that supervisor. We would sign off on it whatever we thought.
Well, what do you guys
and then
think?
we transferred that responsibility to you. So if you want to keep that, I mean, that's quite all right with me.
But you're still you're still in control. I may make some
But
decisions, but
It does make sense to have the secondary beings, they do have some responsibility there, that to have it on their bank be theirs and the other bank be the district's.
and if it's in the middle of the ditch,
But this
it's
is for
district.
future. What
For future, yeah.
if there is a discrepancy? Scott might say, well, I don't think we should pay for this.
But that's what we're saying. If-
Right, I know it.
Yeah, so if it's along the side of the road, because looking at that picture, how would we know? It doesn't look like a district.
Well, you asked what we should do going forward.
Yeah.
Right? So I have no problem with you, Scott, working it out. I don't know.
Well, and.
I'd like some guidance, so from you guys.
I would,
We can't
Say-
give guidance because it's a running.
Well, can it be, if it's on the roadside, secondary roads pays it. If it's on the ditch side, the district pays it. If it's in the middle,
split it.
no, then the district can pay for it.
Okay.
So the only time secondary roads would actually pay for it, if it's an instance like this where it's
Yeah,
on the road
I'm
side.
not following because on a road you have ditches on both sides.
well, no, this is when the dredge ditch is running right down.
Right down the.
Down the-
Right, because it is the
Like
road
it's in
ditch.
in the west ditch.
Okay.
And then if the west bank goes, the district pays for it, or the middle of the district pays for it, but if
Right,
it's the
so this
east
is on
bank.
the road,
Yeah.
the road would pay it. If it's on the other side of the ditch, the district would, and if it's in the middle, the district would. Because I don't know how this instance, what do you think, Scott?
I'm a little different take. I think that, we don't ever have ditch sloughs on regular road ditches, only when it's a drainage ditch. And we have some stretches where there's a mile of ditch running along the road, and if the road department was responsible for keeping those drainage ditch banks, I think that's kind of a burden on the road department. We already pay directly for all the crossings plus the assessments for the work. I think it's most fair if the district pays for those unless they affect the road, or if the road caves into the ditch or, something like that. Like I said, we already pay a couple different ways for drainage ditch maintenance and repairs.
Well, so do the landowners.
I think we leave it open, and if there's a real discrepancy, then come to the board. Because there might be a situation where, the road, I'm trying to think here on my feet, which is tough. There might be a situation where, like this slough, and I just looked at that, the slough in, that might have been caused by the drainage district, might have.
Yeah, I don't know.
It certainly was. I mean, the water's causing it all. I mean, if you wanna get down to it, the drainage district's water running through that ditch that's in the road ditch, that's what's gonna cause any slough in. If you don't have water, you don't have slough in.
But it's at a different slope too,
Yeah, that's true.
and so,
Well, it should still be designed with a slope.
but Scott, I have seen road ditches like up, just for example, right north of Aldivan on the blacktop going north on the east side. That has washed out before, so, and obviously that's a road, situation. I just think it's so fluid,
Well,
this kind of situation.
but the thing I think of is Scott and I are on different sides, so it
Right.
will always be an issue
Right.
where we have to bring it to you. So if you were to just decide, then we're just done, and then we know what it's going to be in the future, and we're good.
Well, if
I'm
that's-
good either way.
If that's the case, then it's gonna be an issue between the board and Scott too,
Or the board and her.
or the board and you.
Well, I'm okay with whatever you decide. I don't need to be right or wrong. I'm just
All right.
stating how I came to my decision.
I'll give my opinion one. I think you should take care of it, and you have the authority to do that. And if you want that to be given, then that, you two can hash it out. If it causes a huge rift, then bring it to the board. There's plenty of time to do it as far as charges is
In
concerned.
those situations, technically, if you wanna, because if there's a slough in that even the road goes into it too, or you're losing some of that, it's the water running through it that caused the whole thing. It isn't the road just decided to collapse. It's because the drainage district's water.
You're right.
So,
So then do we just have the district pay it and be done? Unless it's an actual, something like Scott said, where the road is caving in or something like that.
Well, I'm with Scott on that one.
Yeah,
If the ditch wasn't there, 99% there wouldn't be a slough in.
okay, well then let's just do that. The district just takes care of it, unless it's something crazy. Are you good with that, Scott?
Yeah, I'm good with that.
But, we also, I don't know, do you look at it, what about the traffic? If there's heavy, like, traffic.
Well, but if the ditch wasn't there, they wouldn't have
obvious
it.
damage from heavy traffic, you can usually see that on the roadbed too, or if they're pushing down in a weak spot and it mushrooms the bank out. I mean, you can tell that's happening, and if that's the case, then it would be road, that would be a road issue.
Like Carla said, if the ditch wasn't there, there wouldn't be a problem.
And if the water wasn't saturating the ditch, the heavy traffic wouldn't be, saturating the roadbed, the heavy traffic
That's,
wouldn't be.
yeah, I'm with you.
I mean, it all
Yeah.
comes back to the water.
And that's fine. I'm okay with that. I just wanted some guidance, and I'm glad we talked through it.
Yep.
So,
All right, well, unless there's something really abnormal, then it's the district.
okay, I'm good at that.
Anything else for secondary roads? Okay, we'll move on to auditor's office, we'll discuss drainage matters.
Thanks, Scott.
Yep, that,
Talked to Rick today. 18-11.
Participant announcements off.
18-11, the boring report came through, and it's so sandy that the original contractor cannot do the work,
Oh, really?
really.
Even where they were gonna move it to?
Right, because they're having a hard time trying to figure out where to move it to, because everywhere that they've been
Where they
looking.
sample, it's still sandy?
Yes, and so he's gotta talk to Scott too, because the road, they don't know if the road's gonna be the same way. But they do have a new estimate from a different boring company, but it's more money. So I told Rick to get a change order together so we would know, and then I would send a letter out to the landowners letting them know, maybe what their portion's gonna be or whatever, because it's gonna be more. So he will be getting that together. I said too, if he wanted to email you guys and let you know what it was gonna be in case you get questions.
Are we sampling the road to know what it's like there?
Well, I think the person was hired just to do the railroad part.
But Scott was hoping,
So I'm not sure if they have done the road yet or if they're going to. I don't know
I
that.
suppose
answer.
Scott has to decide whether he wants to do
Because
it
if
by
it-
trenching through it or by boring through it.
Yes, and that's what he wanted to get together with Scott, was because it was just surfaced, but what would be cheaper, the boring or just cutting the road and doing it. So that's gonna be up to Scott.
Yeah.
When it's materials like that, it might be better off to
I can't
take it
remember,
out.
is it
Right.
blacktop?
Yeah,
Yes, that's what, yeah, it's worse. If it's gravel road, it'd be a no brainer.
It's a Scarville blacktop.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I was thinking.
so,
But it'll have to be gravel for till next year.
Especially because it's getting repaved right there right now. isn't it?
I don't know what else to do besides the project still has to go through. We've got to find somebody, if that's the cheapest we can find, because there's not a lot of options for boring. Send a letter out. I don't want the
Chris,
Oh, I'm sorry.
Chris, do they have a way to get under the railroad okay, or is that undetermined still too?
I think it's still undetermined, Scott. I think they're getting closer, but it changes the design. And that's why they
Yeah,
stopped where they were with the tile, because they don't know where it's gonna turn.
Sure.
I did ask
Well,
him,
I mean,
I did ask Rick if they could at least move that tile that's maybe in the field out of the way, so Mr. Harmon can get to his crop the best way he can to get it out this year, because it's not going anywhere. That tile, you know, it's not going in this year before harvest. And I don't want him to not be able to get in there and get his crops out.
So they've got tile.
Yeah.
I think there's tile sitting in,
Within 300 feet of the, it's an open trench.
they've put in tile, I think they just had the extra just laying there,
Okay.
waiting to go
They
in.
gotta move the
So
actual.
just move it out of the way. Yeah. Hey, Scott, do you have Rick's number?
I do.
Okay, I was just say, he had a different meeting this morning, but if you want to call him later, you guys can talk about the road part.
Yeah, I mean, it's not out of the question that we open cut and put that pipe across there, but that's kind of a big decision, and I'd have to, visit with Mark about our schedule and everything like that, see if we can get it done.
Yeah.
But if they can't get under the railroad, that's kind of something that needs to be figured out first, probably.
Oh, it does, most definitely, because then we have to figure out where that is to know where it's going to go across the road.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll call Rick and get up to speed on it, and we'll see if we can't get a couple options on the table.
Okay.
Now, when they do that boring, do they pull a pipe through, or how does a boring work?
Well, Rick said.
Yeah, they
Go ahead.
Yeah, they get what they call it a steel casing, which is really heavy pipe that they shove under the road, and as they shove it, they kind of auger dirt from the inside of the pipe, and just kind of incrementally goes in there on a kind of railroad track. It's I haven't seen it in a while, so I can't really explain it any better than that.
Well, how can
But then,
how can the sand or whatever's around it, how can that be collapsing if it's just being pushed through? I'm not envisioning that.
It can collapse out ahead of where they're shoving the pipe. The pipe is here, and as they're augering it out, it can collapse down in and auger more dirt, and then it'll create an air pocket in there. I think is the way.
Well, and the railroad can't move.
No, I know
And
that.
that's what they're concerned with.
I'd like to call Gary Elgison, because I remember talking to him about this, where this is a long time ago, but they actually pulled the pipe through.
Instead of dug it through?
Instead of digging it through.
This is a big pipe, though.
How big is this one?
Oh, I don't recall.
His was, I believe, a 20.
I think about 48 or so, or
Yeah, I
bigger than
think
that.
48.
It's big.
Yeah,
That's
it's
big.
big.
to pull through.
It's a lot of friction.
I pulled water line through.
Thing.
Well,
And Rick is still trying to make sure that it's as cheap as possible. I mean, he doesn't want the landowners to be paying any more than they have to.
looks like Scott said, if it can't go through the railroad, this is all for naught.
And then it's all for naught, and that's too bad.
Yeah.
So, trying to figure out something. Because what they've done so far isn't gonna do anything for anybody.
Would you mind if I call Gary and ask him that question?
Yes, if you want.
Hey,
They did boring by the old fertilizer plant in Lake Nels under the railroad for that water line. But that was only this big.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Hey, we're in a meeting here, supervisors, we're talking about boring under the road. And and railroad.
Yeah.
I remember talking with you about, it was a hard job, but you pulled a pipe through, you and your dad.
Yeah.
Can you do that through sand?
Well, you could, but this different ball game. That's a pretty big pipe, and then you're dealing with the railroad on. You know, I'm sure they're stinkers.
Okay.
You know, I can't believe there isn't any new technology to be able to get that pipe under that railroad track.
Okay.
Must be some vicious sand.
Yeah, I can't tell you from an engineering standpoint, so.
Yeah, I don't know what to tell you. But yeah, we've done it before, but not on this magnitude of what you got to deal with there.
Is it possible? That big a pipe?
You'd have to have one heavy piece of equipment doing the shoving as you're doing it.
Yeah.
What do you
Okay,
do?
I don't know, Mike, I'll tell you a little story, you know, on 69 by where Gary Nelson lives. My dad in the old days bored under Highway 69 and he did what we're talking, but he would lay in the pipe and dig by hand and then they'd pull the pipe. Lay in there, dig, and wheelbarrow bucket it out. Well, you ain't gonna find nobody do that today. that was the old days. So, yeah, I wouldn't be able to advise much on this.
Okay. All
Yep,
right.
thank
Yep.
you.
Thanks.
Bye.
Hopefully somebody's got a better process.
And I don't know who this other outfit is or where they're from. I don't know
See,
any
if you were
information.
to have something heavy enough behind it, and as you're pushing the pipe through, and then keep you don't wanna get that auger too far out in front, because that's when it can fall down. If you keep the pipe ahead of the auger, kinda, I don't know if you can do that.
I thought they were even. I thought you pushed the pipe and the auger, just whatever comes
Yeah,
into
kinda
the
goes, they
pipe.
go with it, yeah. But, and unfortunately it collapses. You know. You would think that it would be, the odds would be really slim of it caving in. But the odds of, it's really bad when a train derails too, so you hate to create a dip in the tracks. Okay, well, I guess that stands where it's at then, huh?
Okay.
Until they figure out what's,
Right. Yeah, until we figure out where we can actually go across.
or. Gosh, too bad that road's being repaved right now, why couldn't it be next year? But, that's the easy part of it in a sense.
Next thing, did you ever talk to Terry Kiewit?
No, I have not.
Okay. I did talk to Rick when we were talking. He said that to redo 21 is hardly anything because he just did it. 6, he would do for as cheap as he could. And I told him to get an estimate on what it would take so we could tell Terry.
One reason, I was thinking that, man, that's just an astronomical cost for just changing a few acres.
Well, but it changes
It is what
everybody's
it is.
assessment.
But, hopefully we can. get that
Yeah.
done, so.
Yeah, I hope it would be cheap enough because Rick would love to do it. Plus, I'd like to see 6 redone just to see if it's better for the Rick boys. But
Oh, yeah, that 6 is. where
'Cause
they
it's a
get
huge
those, is
district.
that- Yeah, you told us about that.
it's a huge district.
Yeah, no, yeah, it's a lot bigger than I thought it was.
Yes.
Looking at the map, it's like, look at that.
Well,
So-
Rick definitely uses a different model of reclassification than what Brett did.
Is that who did it, Brent?
Was it McClure?
Going back to the boring, don't you think we should test the railroad first before we spend the money on the new contractor, new tester for the road? Because if we can't go through the railroad, it's,
Oh, yeah, we're going to.
No.
We're still working on the railroad part.
no, I know, but shouldn't we do that before we spend any money on the road?
We're not doing the road first.
Yeah, they aren't gonna do anything until we can get the railroad.
Oh, okay, I
Yeah.
misunderstood you.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, He just wants to coordinate it with Scott to know
Okay.
how he would like to handle his
All
part.
right, yeah, all right.
Yeah.
When the time comes,
When the
if
time comes.
comes.
Yeah.
Well, anything else other than what's on the agenda?
I don't think so.
I was out at DD1 after the big rain we had.
Ooh.
You know, I had 4.4 inches on Friday night, and they had 3.5 in Thompson, so somewhere around 4 inches in that area. And the ditch, I was there, it happened, overnight, Friday night, Saturday morning. And I was there Sunday afternoon when I got back, and it had come up this far, and it was already back down.
Nice.
So it had flowed downstream and gotten rid of, so
Good. Good.
didn't see any washouts.
Good. I wonder how the current washouts look.
I don't know.
If they're worse or
From
not.
where from the road I was looking at, I didn't see anything caved in.
Mhm.
So,
The grass established itself pretty well now.
no, I mean, it
Still,
just got
still
seeded.
pretty dirt.
But it looked like they've got the ditch part of it dug and they're into the, the tile now.
I'm gonna go out there tomorrow morning when it's not so hot. I wanna go look at it.
Okay. Number 7, consider for approval change order number 2 for DD 11 main tile improvement project.
And this is what we talked about before. This is just to actually sign the papers.
Yeah, we didn't have the agenda last week. Now, I talked to somebody, think some of these guys in the lower end feel a little better about this thing. They did a project in Cassup County where they have, trying to decide whether to go to a 1-inch coefficient or no, what was it, half
Half
inch
or
or
one.
And they had the same situation, and they went with the 1-inch coefficient, and the guys on the downside couldn't believe how well it ended up turning out for them, because of getting rid of the water quicker. So hopefully it goes out here too.
And they're still working on the lower end,
Yeah. no,
trying to
we're-
get that figured out.
Because there are issues.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to approve the change order for DD 11 main tile improvement project.
Second. A motion Derby and a second Stensrud to change, for the change order number 2 for DD 11 main tile improvement project. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
If you could sign both of those, Bill, please.
Okay, open forum.
Did you guys have any questions on claims before I go?
Oh, I didn't see it.
Did you have any questions on claims before I go?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Salary increases that I've received.
Yeah.
make a motion to approve the semi-monthly county claims.
I'll second. Motion from Derby and second from Jensvold to approve the semi-monthly county claims. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
We stand adjourned.